5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Just for the drive. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
What's going on? Welcome to another episode of BSS Sports. My name is Steven Schill, and the lovely lad over there is Trevor Struthers. Blue Jays, oh baby, we're in the playoffs. Not the way we wanted to be there. We didn't want to have to go through this wildcard game, but we're here. It's happened. We've done it. Trevor, are you happy we're looking at October baseball?
I mean, if you asked me a month ago that the Blue Jays would be the top wild card team, it'd probably be mixed with a lot of mixed emotions with Blue Jays fans, because ultimately it's not really where you want to be. Take it as it's, for what it is. Before the second wild card the whole wild card game thing started, this would be a regular playoff spot where the Blue Jays have finished. So, I mean, it's definitely worthy of being in the playoffs. I don't like seeing on Twitter after the game, everybody's like, like even media people are like, why celebrate this? Not just fans are saying this, but why celebrate, just getting to the playoffs? Getting into the playoffs in baseball, as Blue Jays fans should know by now, is incredibly difficult. It's one of the hardest sports to make the playoffs. Football might be a little bit more difficult, and maybe it should be something, that should be said about maybe football players, and I feel like they don't, party it up as much as baseball players when they make the playoffs. It's a lot harder than hockey, that's for sure, when it comes to looking at sports that we like a lot here in this country.
Well, you're saying on this point about we shouldn't be celebrating or anything, but to an extent, for the Blue Jays in particular, isn't that the case? Because we were ahead by X amount of games not even 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a little bittersweet to be in the position that the Blue Jays are in. There's no doubt about that. They had a rough September, and it was met with the Red Sox going on an 11-game winning streak and having a fantastic September, and that built what I think was like 5 or 4 game difference between the two teams when it came for the division spot, for the top of the division. But, I mean, you're in the playoffs, right? You play 162 games a year. Like I said, I mean, Blue Jays fans know how difficult it is to make the playoffs in baseball. You battle 7 months to get to where the Blue Jays are right now. And they have an opportunity here to go in Tuesday night, and they're going to be at home now, thanks to the win yesterday, to beat the Baltimore Orioles and get into the ALDS. And that's something that, I mean, maybe if you ask Blue Jays fans at the beginning of the season that would be the situation they're in, that there could be disappointment there as well, coming off of winning the division the year before. But I feel anytime you make the playoffs in baseball, you have so many teams that aren't in the playoffs where, I mean, it's not a bad thing to be in the playoffs. And the Blue Jays have a chance to do something here.
I mean, we're in a pretty good division. We got 3 AL East teams in the playoffs. We have the Red Sox, the Orioles, and the Blue Jays. Do you think that the Blue Jays are going to be able to win this game over the Orioles? And out of these 3 teams, if not, who do you think is going to go the furthest?
The interesting thing about this wild card game is it could literally go either way. The season series was close. I believe the Blue Jays came out on top of that. I was at the game last week where they won on Tuesday against Baltimore, and then they lost the next 2 after that to the same Baltimore team at the same place where this wild card game is happening, the Rogers Center. So, I mean, it could go either way. All those games were pretty close. I think the biggest run differential was 4 runs, which really isn't a lot. I mean, you can go on a rally in 1 inning and make up that deficit. So it's going to be incredibly close. I just get that feeling. I don't know if either team is going to have the starter that they would want going in that game. Obviously, the Blue Jays had Aaron Sanchez pitching yesterday, and that's obviously a guy that the Blue Jays would love to have pitch in the wild card game. And Marco Estrada is another guy that probably won't be able to make that start. So obviously, when it comes to pitching matchups, it's not the one I think that either team would want. And obviously, Baltimore has a great offense. Toronto has the better pitching. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And Baltimore this year has had the better offense. But, I mean, you just look at the Blue Jays lineup. I mean, they can score runs, though they haven't been able to do it a lot. Maybe they can do something here and, get those bats going now that it's playoff time.
What do you think about the Blue Jays playoff run and the contract negotiations between Edwin Encarnacion and Jose Bautista? Does whatever the Blue Jays do in these playoffs influence what happens with those two?
If they win the World Series, maybe. And by maybe, I mean, like, maybe there's like a 35% chance of impacting the negotiations. It's going to come down to money. It's going to come down to term. I mean, that's pretty much what every contract comes down to, and especially when there's no hard salary cap in baseball, that's going to be the big difference in this. Is like who just gives the guys what they want contract wise, and it very well could be let's say a Boston Red Sox trying to replace David Ortiz with Edwin Encarnacion. That could end up being the contract that's best for them. So. And it's the same thing with Bautista. It's going to come down to the contract. And, I mean, one guy had a great year. The other guy had a disappointing year. They're both going to get paid the money that they deserve after this year.
Now, on the talk of the MLB world and, Big Papi today, finishing up things with the Red Sox, at least regular season-wise, Ryan Howard is another name that is come out as not returning with the Phillies. They do have to pay a $10 million buyout for his 2017 option. I mean, for any team wanting Ryan Howard, he hit 25 home runs this year. Throw him in the American League with a designated hitter. The dude is going to be wanted. I mean, he's had 12 years with the Phillies, and that's great. You put David Ortiz over in the National League, probably wouldn't last 12 years. Especially at this point in his career. Obviously, Ortiz is retiring, but Ryan Howard can come back. Do you think maybe if the Blue Jays skip out on Bautista and Encarnacion, they might pick up Howard?
Maybe. I mean, what do you have left with Howard is the big question, and where is he at with
well, he's 36, so I mean, it depends.
He's younger than David Ortiz, if that means anything. And obviously, Ortiz has had a fantastic season. I don't think you can really compare the two. Both guys is no doubt David Ortiz is the better baseball player at a later stage in his career than Ryan Howard will probably ever be. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some team were to take a chance on him. I don't know if he'd sign a minor league contract, but I know that could definitely be a real possibility for a team to offer him. I mean, if anything, maybe a bat off the bench. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out. Do I think the Blue Jays have any interest in Howard? Not necessarily. I mean, he's a left-handed bat, so I guess from that standpoint, it would be nice because the Blue Jays really don't have a lot of those. Beyond that, I mean, a 36-year-old guy that can pretty much only DH. I think they'll look in other ways. And what would be interesting to see is what kind of contract this guy gets. Because as you mentioned, this is a big buyout. He had a big contract. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of contract he does end up getting. Because I don't think it's going to be anything that's like that big. Because I don't think a team wants to commit that much to Ryan Howard at this point.
Obviously, baseball is horrible with this whole cap, lack thereof cap issue, and just paying players a lot of money. Matt Holliday of the St. Louis Cardinals is another player who's not expected to return with the Cardinals, 36 as well. There's some talk that he could possibly go back for a reduced rate, but there is a $1 million buyout for his option next year. Otherwise, if he did play with the Cardinals, they'd have to pay $17 million just for next year for an outfielder who's 36. He's had 7 years with the Cardinals, but that's a heck of a lot of money. Trevor, do you think baseball is ever going to come to this point where the money's going to outweigh everything?
When it comes to players signing with teams, yeah. Money obviously is like the big decider in many things, not just sports. When it comes to, I mean, everybody wants to have as much money as they can. That's the thing. And it's that way with organizations. It's that way with players. In a way, it's unfortunate, but professional sports seems to, go around, money. It's involved around money completely. And
in the NFL, the weekly talk about the Patriots is taking quite a turn this week. The quarterback that was doing great last week, Jacoby Brissett, does absolutely nothing this week. New England falls apart. The Buffalo Bills' defense was outstanding, as well as Tyrod Taylor and their offense. As you said, Trevor, you texted me earlier, Patriots fans are kind of disappointed because, 1 week shy. Sure, suspend him for 3, but not 4. Mr. Tom Brady's coming back next week. But the Patriots, they looked awful. I don't really know what was going on with them. Generally, they do fine. There's never a blowout, but they lost at home in Gillette Stadium, their fortress per se. They lost to the Buffalo Bills. I mean, 3 years ago, holy crap, this is the biggest news story in the world. But the Bills have definitely improved a lot. But with this being shown, do you think the whole hype around Jacoby Brissett is now completely gone?
I don't know if there was much hype really behind him, because I think if the Patriots have proven anything, and if Belichick has proven anything, it's that you can literally throw anybody under center for the Patriots and they can have a fantastic game. With that being said, didn't happen yesterday, that's for sure. And a lot of credit, I think, has to be given to Buffalo, because they're able to shut out New England at home, which hasn't happened since 1993. So, that's kind of significant. You only play about, 14, 16 games a year, but it's like whenever somebody gets, shut out for the first time in over 20 years, that's a big deal. Like, you could throw anybody out there for the most part with the Patriots, and they'll have a shot to win a football game. I mean, they only lost 16-0 in this game, and they really haven't had a quarterback since Garoppolo got hurt. He has, that's their backup. That's the guy that they put all their once Brady's gone, that's the guy they have to rely on. And when he goes down, whether he's healthy or not, that's just, you can't rely on your backup quarterback for multiple weeks to provide for you. They're going to be so happy to get Tom Brady back, I can tell you that much. And it'll be interesting to see how the Patriots bounce back moving forward.
And I just want to stay on this quarterback talk for a minute. It seems they almost have to, it's a need for a quarterback to be mobile. Now, with that being said, not able to walk here or there, physically outrun some of the the defensive linemen, who are some pretty big dudes, as fast as they possibly can if they're under fire, or sometimes running into Von Miller, and then you can try, but you're probably not going to win that one. Now, with that being said, what's going on with sports in general and having to have this quickness? We're seeing it kind of take over in the NBA. Just the big, tall guys aren't necessarily the best players to have on your team. The quick, threats down low no matter what. Russell Westbrook just running to the net. He can deke around all the big guys and then throw it up because he's quicker than all of them. And it's the same thing with the NFL. If you have people running after you and you're quicker and not necessarily just a big dude, you can do better. Same with the linebackers. Ray Lewis, huge dude, did great, but it seems that sports in general are now kind of being suited for smaller people, if that makes sense.
It is kind of funny that we're talking about this the day after David Ortiz plays his final regular season game. Not that we're going to talk about baseball at all when we talk about this, but it's like that in hockey as well, where you're noticing a faster game. And I think when it comes to football and with quarterbacks, the whole speed and being able to run it themselves, it just adds another weapon to what a team can do. You can do more than just try to sneak with the quarterback. You can try to create actual offense when a quarterback could potentially win the football, when he can hand it off to somebody in the backfield, or if he can make a pass. So, it just creates more opportunities for what you can do with your offense. And so, if that's an extra weapon that a quarterback has, then, a team's going to be interested in having that.
So, golf is kind of biased. They seem to only like Europeans in the United States, as the Ryder Cup only involves those two. Trevor, what's the lowdown from the Ryder Cup?
Well, the Americans finally won it for the first time in about, this was the first out of the last. They lost the last three to Europe, so I'll say that much. And the Ryder Cup is something I've never really been able to get into as a fan of golf, mainly because there's really no rooting interest for me, because there is no Canada representation. They have a President's Cup that happens every year when there's not a Ryder Cup, which I think is the Americans against pretty much the world, if I'm not mistaken. So some Canadians get in through that. But, what it is it's two of golf's biggest powers, so to speak, going head-to-head. The European golfers that they're able to produce, and the American golfers. And obviously, when it comes to the PGA Tour, where there are so many Americans that are on tour, and there's a lot of elite golfers from America. Obviously, Tiger Woods is a name that's synonymous with golf, and with the way Jordan Spieth, among others, have come on recently. Obviously, for Europe, you have a Rory McIlroy. So, what it is it's golf's two biggest powers, and it's in a way similar to the World Cup of Hockey, which we just saw. You had Team Europe put together, so that's kind of similar to the Team Europe that you have with the Ryder Cup. But with that being, it's not like there's every country is represented in this World Cup of Hockey. It's the same thing with the Ryder Cup, although they do their best with the World Cup with having that Team Europe.
That's it for this episode of BSS Sports. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at BSS Sports. If you want to check out our previously archived works, It's on YouTube at BSS Productions. For Steven Schill and Trevor Struthers, we'll catch you next Monday.